Okay.
All right, so Psycho is by Alfred Hitchcock, which he also did Vertigo, The Birds, Rear Window, and then he had Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which was a TV show, which was similar to The Twilight Zone, and they told really unusual, suspenseful stories. And those are some of the things that he's very, very well known for. Psycho was based off of a novel by Robert Bloch, and I will tell you more about Robert Bloch after we watch the film. So, request for me, don't look up anything. Try to avoid any sort of spoilers because it will impact your viewing experience. So if you've never seen this, avoid listening to any sort of spoilers or looking up any information about the novel itself. So a little about Hitchcock. He was born in 1899 and he lived until 1980. He was very, very popular in the 1950s, especially the late 1950s, so 1959. And he worked with Paramount. So that was the film company that really, really worked with him quite a bit. And he normally had a contract for $250,000 for every film he made. Psycho was a little bit different, and Psycho was a low-budget film. It was originally intended to be a B movie. He only used $800,000 to make Psycho, so it was extremely low budget because most of his other films cost about $3 million to make. He decided to make this film really, really quickly. It was called the 30-day film. So essentially, he really wanted to do something unique and different. So Psycho was unlike any other film that he had made before, and because of that, he decided to make it super, super low budget. Psycho's made in black and white, although there was color technology at the time. He really, really felt that having it in black and white was going to create a very suspenseful aesthetic appeal, and I think that definitely was the right choice. One thing that he had as a goal as a director was not to repeat himself. So we see certain directors making certain films with the same actors every single time. I know that Tim Burton now does a lot of very, very similar movies, and he works with Johnny Depp quite a bit. That was the exact opposite motivation for Hitchcock himself. So this particular film was a really, really fun challenge for him. Paramount, like I said, they normally paid him $250,000 to do every film that he did with the company, but he made a pretty sweet deal for himself. He said, "Hey, it's a low budget film, so why don't I just take 15% of the profits?" Well, 15% of the profits equated to what would be, factoring in an inflation today, about $150 million. So he made a ton of money off of this film, and it was really, really a big surprise because it was so low budget and it was deemed a B movie before it even began. So there are 5 basic plot formulations that we are going to be able to identify through watching Psycho. The falsely accused man. So we're going to see someone falsely accused for doing something that they did not do. The guilty woman. And we're going to see this guilty woman essentially within the first 5 minutes. The psychopath, who I won't tell you too much about. Espionage and political intrigue, and marriage. And marriage is going to be a big issue in Psycho in the first particular scene itself. And Hitchcock was really drawn to stories that contained these elements. Even though all the films that he made were very, very unique and different, these were definitely the themes that he really enjoyed working on. If I go too fast, just let me know, I can go back. So, the making of Psycho. The first scene was shot November 11th, 1959. It took literally 30 days to film Psycho. So, they had 14 to 18 setups in a day. And imagine, if you will, all the equipment, the lighting, testing everything, getting the actors prepared. Today, it's still a huge, huge project. But back then, when the equipment was huge and even bigger and bulkier and not as easy to move around, that would have been really, really exhausting for the crew. So the crew was literally working at least 18 hours a day, almost round the clock, to get this film, get everything captured on the film. But Hitchcock had this theory. He wanted the film to be very, very natural. He didn't want the actors to be too rehearsed. He didn't want the performances to be fake or seem artificial. So, especially for Janet Leigh, who is our main female protagonist in the film, he never let her go beyond 3 or 4 takes. And Janet Leigh and Hitchcock were really, really good friends. So working with her was a really enjoyable experience for him. And he was able to treat her pretty poorly on set and play a bunch of tricks on her, which we'll get into in a little bit. Again, he opted for black and white, and he opted for a 50mm lens, which is the closest lens to the human eye. So he wanted everything to seem as natural and realistic as possible in order to build that authentic suspense. I think the human eye is 35mm technically, so it was as close as he could get to film the movie. Mum's the word. So Hitchcock, because this is very suspenseful and he's trying to build this mystery around the film, he had his assistants buy up as many copies of the book as possible. He also bought the rights to the book for $9,000. So he bought the rights for the film anonymously. He didn't tell the book or the author who was buying the film, and he just tried to get as little press about it as possible. It was a closed set. So unlike many movies today and many movies back then, you always get the press. We see E! News on set all the time, filming or talking to the different actors and the directors. None of that for Hitchcock. Many people in the cast didn't even know the ending, and he filmed things out of order so much so that he would confuse the cast and the crew, so nobody could go off and gossip about what the ending was. Also, Hitchcock himself, he did a lot of things to spread rumors about the story in a false way. So he would say different things were the ending, and he would go and spread that rumor himself just to create more mass confusion and more mystery around Psycho. Psycho premieres. I don't think this would work today, but he was very, very strict. He had this contract clause with all the movie theaters that were showing Psycho. If you were late to the film, you were not admitted. Because from the starting credits, the sound and the special effects create this sense of suspense. If you miss those first few minutes, whether you realize it or not, you were missing a huge, huge component of the film. So he had this little cutout in front of all the film doors that were showing the film, and he said, it's required that you see Psycho from the very beginning. They would put the time, the start time, and literally, even if you bought a ticket, the doors would lock and shut, and you were not admitted. So if you really wanted to see the movie, you had to be on time. And there's something here about, he makes a joke or a pun that he threatens the life of the movie theater manager or anybody that lets people in late. Obviously that's just him being funny, but it was a lot of pressure because he really wanted you to see the film from start to finish.